everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Saturday, January the 7th. It's race number 8 at Aqueduct, and it's the Jerome for 3-year-olds going a one-turn mile. Let's take a peek at this field. $150,000, the purse for the Jerome, a field of 8 3-year-olds hoping to take their first steps, maybe to bigger races like the Gotham, the Wood Memorial, and who knows, maybe the Kentucky Derby. Arctic Arrogance, the 6, New York bred, 8-5 morning line favorite, and already graded stakes placed. A very logical contender on paper, Mike.
Yeah, he is. I just think he's a super logical horse in here. I think he's a deserving favorite against this field just based on what he's done so far, Dan. He's a New York bred, but he's run 4 times already. He's run really well, I think, in all 4 of those races. And more than anything else, I think cutting back out of the Remsen last time is probably going to help this horse.
I agree that a one-turn mile is a little bit better for him right now than a 1 1/8, although he did run very well in the Remsen. A potential concern is that he likes to be close to the pace. And from the Timeform US pace projector, we see a situation where it's a red bar indicating the potential for a fast pace. Andiamo while Firenze stretching back out in distance should show speed. I'm not sure if Lugan Knight's going to be up close to the pace, even though he's stretching out, but Valenzan knows only one way to go. Arctic Arrogance, I can see in a 3-wide tracking trip, but the pace might be pretty swift.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because when I went through this race and I wound up going back through it a couple of times after I saw the pace projector, Dan, I wasn't sure that I necessarily agreed that it had to be a fast pace. I do think the 5 Andiamo at Firenze is going to go in here. That might cause Artistic Arrogance to have to sit a little bit, but I don't know. I wasn't sure that the pace had to be, a super fast one. And, Arctic Arrogance rather, did get the best of the draw outside the other speeds.
A horse that made a really nice career debut is a horse that can adapt seemingly to any sort of pace scenario and wouldn't mind it if it's hot. It's the number 1 Neural Network, who made a winning career debut in this race at Aqueduct over a demanding debut distance, 7/8 of a mile. We see Neural Network on the outside beginning to get into gear, and once he gets to the front, he's off to the races.
I liked this debut from this horse. He did get a good trip in here. More than anything else, though, Dan, I liked this part of the race, the last furlong or so here. I just like the way that he finishes it off. To me, it suggests that he has, a pretty good amount of potential. He's got some pedigree behind him for really good connections. We'll see what kind of price he is. I didn't really want him at the morning line price. I don't think I'd bet him at 7-2, but I think he's a really dangerous horse in here.
The number 2 is Circling the Drain, shipping up from Maryland for the high percentage Brittany Russell barn, and Circling the Drain certainly improved second time out at paltry odds of 1-5. Let's watch this race, a 2-turn 1 1/16 waiver maiden claimer. Circling the Drain got right to the lead, back down the fractions to his liking. They went 49 and change to the half, and he had no problems with this bunch. Could be a different scenario against tougher horses and a faster pace.
Yeah, almost certainly going to be tougher for him. To me, it's going to be very interesting to see what he does in here. Just because I personally could have kind of gone either way on him, Dan. I thought he was pretty green in his debut, and I thought he actually ran pretty well that day. So I was interested to see what he would do in his second start, and I'm just not really sure how much we found out there. He towered over them. He was in charge of a relatively modest pace the entire way. He won for fun, but he didn't necessarily run a fast race. So I think the jury's still out as to how good he is.
He was much more professional, though. You did mention he was green and he didn't change leads in his debut. He seemed to do everything with a bit more alacrity in that start. This is a tougher race. The 3 is Valenzan. This is a 3-year-old that already has won 3 times. The problem is all those wins have come against lesser competition, including this starter allowance race where he was claimed for $50,000 by trainer Linda Rice. Valenzan is a fast horse, was on the lead on a legitimate pace over this muddy track, and he just puts the boots to this field. I just wonder if he's a tweener from a class perspective. Maybe these 50 starters, he towers over them, but I'm not sure if he's a stakes horse either.
I don't know if he is either. I don't know. This is a horse I have to admit that I was a fan of early on, so I'm not. I think it's okay for them to give him another chance back in stakes competitions. I really liked his debut when he won, and I just thought he ran deceptively well in the Tremont in his second start. So I just thought maybe he was a little bit of an underrated 2-year-old. Obviously, things didn't necessarily go that well for him after that. So I don't know. Maybe he's just not that good. But I think it's very interesting that Linda, who ended 2022 red hot and has kept it going this year, interesting that, she steps him right into the Jerome off the claim.
A horse that should show speed. I'm a little bit concerned about the mile for this horse because he is fast, but he did get the 7/8 last time out. Lugan Knight is the number 4, and if you read Dave Grenning's excellent DRF race advance for the Jerome, he had a chance to talk to his trainer, Michael McCarthy, and I agreed with everything McCarthy said about Lugan Knight. I thought this horse ran in spots last time out, going 3/4 of a mile. He loomed boldly with this 4-wide bid, turning into the stretch. And then the next thing you know, with the 3/16 that were getting away from him, and then the next thing you know, he's running on again, and he made it relatively close. The big takeaway out of that race that most handicappers are going to utilize is victory formation 1. He came back and won the Smarty Jones with a 91 buyer the other day. That might actually hurt Lugan Knight's price as he stretches out for the first time.
That's true. How disappointed would you be if I disagreed with you and Mike McCarthy about his last race? Would that hurt your feelings too much?
Mike, I don't think there's nothing you can do after 25 years to hurt my feelings. I want you to give your honest opinion. You didn't like the race.
I might put that theory to the test later on this year. I don't think he ran poorly last time, Dan, but I just didn't really see that he had any kind of real excuse in there. Personally, I thought Florent Geroux wanted to go to the lead with this horse, and he wasn't fast enough to get there with victory formation in the race. So they had to sit a little bit, and then he made a run to the stretch, and he was kind of, I thought, maybe clunking along a little bit there to make it relatively close in third at the end. I don't know. He ran okay. I think all 3 of his races are okay. And I don't know. I didn't necessarily like him that much in the spot.
Are you concerned about the distance also with this horse, considering that he might take some money? It's a great unknown from a pedigree perspective. It's not like he's stretching out to 1 1/8. You would think that this horse is enough to get the mile.
Yeah, I wasn't worried actually about the distance at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if it actually helped him a little bit because, as I mentioned, he's got a little bit of speed. I don't know if he has 6 furlong speed, though, Dan. I think in a race like this, we'll see how fast the pace is, obviously, but I think he could fall into a pretty good trip here.
Andiamo Firenze is the number 5, really a New York bred in name only, being a Speightstown half-brother to the very classy Firenze Fire. Let's watch his most recent start way back in October, going 3/4 of a mile at Finger Lakes. Now, he was odds-on in this race. You see he's in between horses. He's going to drop a nose decision. This race did produce 3 next out winners. He's going to stretch out back out to 1 mile, and I think it's way too early to say a mile is not within his scope. In that mile race, he ran against Blazing Sevens in the Champagne. With his speed, I have a feeling if he gets to the front and relaxes, he has a dangerous pace presence.
Yeah, I think this horse is actually pretty good. I'm with you on everything you said about his only try at 1 mile so far. It came in the Grade 1 Champagne over a sloppy track. So maybe you just don't want to hold that race against him. The flip side of that is he was pretty bad in the Champagne after making an easy lead. That pace was not fast. And when they came for him in the stretch, he just had absolutely nothing, and he was no match for those horses. Maybe it was the competition. It could have been the distance a little bit too. I don't know. I think this horse is okay. I don't really want him in here.
Arctic Arrogance is up next. This is your morning line favorite based on this effort. An excellent second-place finish in the Grade 2 Remsen behind an extremely promising prospect from the Danny Gargan barn, W. Nell. Arctic Arrogance over this very sloppy track pushed the pace throughout, fights on all the way down to the wire, and he got a fig. An 89 buyer speed figure, already a winner at Aqueduct going a 1-turn mile. This horse should trip out from the outside under Jose Lescano.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He runs pretty well here. Maybe the 9 furlongs just a little bit too far. He was, on the lead the entire way here. That's not an excuse for him because the horse that beat him there in the photo was just pushing him the entire trip in there and just outfinished him at the end. But this horse still ran well, and he ran well on all 3 of his other starts also. I think this horse is pretty good.
How about the 7 General Banker at a price? Especially if the pace is hot. This is another New York bred. Now, it took this horse 8 tries to win his maiden. But what a way to do it in a $500,000 stakes race for New York breds. Let's watch General Banker. I liked what he did in this race, Mike. He settled in the second flight. He got to the outside, and he really finishes this thing off. He turns on the jets in the final 3/16 of a mile. He earned a respectable 83 buyer speed figure. Now he has to prove this race is for real, perhaps on fast going against much better horses. But I think he's getting good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. He actually ran pretty well 2 starts back when he finished second in a relatively fast maiden special weight race. He obviously took a little bit of a step forward in that, that big purse race that we just watched there, Dan. Worth noting, there were a bunch of horses who probably didn't deserve to be running for that kind of a purse. Just because they put it out there, there were a bunch of maidens in that field. And he won for fun. I'm with you. I think this horse is headed in the right direction. This is a way tougher race, though.
Completing the field is the number 8, Narciso Dali, and this one needed a drop into this maiden claiming race, 75,000 to create his ultimate masterpiece. Narciso Dali got to the front and really had an easy time of it on the lead, backed it down that second quarter, and it's just too much for these weaker horses. Different pace scenario, different class situation. I'll take a wait and see approach.
Yeah, it kind of just feels like there's too much working against him in this spot. He did improve in this race, though. He wins very easily against a weak field. His prior dirt races weren't that good, but he obviously took a step forward here.
Does seem like a little trier just watching him run on in the stretch. Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the Jerome, first step in the New York road to the Triple Crown. Mike, you're going with Arctic Arrogance. This horse is simply the one to beat.
Yeah, I just think he's way the horse to beat in here. I couldn't talk myself really into anyone else. Then I only like the 1 and the 6. I'll wait and see if there's a huge price discrepancy between them. But as the morning line stands, I'll just take the 6.
Now, I'm going to be cautious not to hurt your feelings with my selection of Lugan Knight, because I will agree with Michael McCarthy. I think this horse is still learning. I think the mile will be within his scope. And if Timeform US's pace is correct, I think he'll be sitting a good spot ready to pounce in the stretch. 6-1-4-3 for Mike, 4-6-7-5 for me. It's the Saturday DRF race of the day, the Jerome at the Big A. Good luck.